everybody. Welcome to A Little Bit Unhinged, episode 4. We made it to episode 4. That's pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. Casey's here.
Hey, hi, hello.
And I am also here. And we are... Well, what are we doing, Casey?
We're driving. Not to be confused with 2 weeks ago when we were driving as well.
Yeah. It's a totally different driving. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yep,
I don't want anybody to get confused by the amount of world traveling and podcasting we do.
It is another two-state episode.
That's right. And this episode, we're going to talk about Ocarina of Time.
Yay!
Ocarina of Time, your favorite game.
It is, yep.
Widely considered, especially at the time, is one of the top handful of games ever made. I just beat it a week ago.
Yep.
And I have lots of thoughts to talk to you about. And a lot of these things, some of these things I have said to you as we've been going through, but not everything. Not everything I said to you. And I've read a lot of articles because I also wondered how people thought it held up over time.
Yeah.
Because it's tricky. It's tricky because you have to look at it at two different scales. On the one hand, and the thing that I think I've talked to you the most about, the thing I believe the most, is that modern games don't exist without Ocarina of Time existing.
Sure.
You know, like, it is the framework that so many things exist from. And so it's important for that alone. Its value to the industry and gaming in general is unmatched.
Yeah.
But then separately, how it's aged, I think, is another question. And I want to point out that I played the Switch version on the Nintendo 64 emulator, I guess is what it is. Which is different than like the 3DS version that has some quality of life changes.
Yeah, because I just played the 3DS version not too long ago.
Yeah. So you have experienced some of those quality of life changes that certainly would make it feel different, modern. You know, feel different now that they didn't build in at the time.
Well, I mean, there's really not that many changes. Obviously, it's handheld for 3DS. And they have extra buttons to give you more quick switches instead of just the 3 arrows.
Yeah.
But overall, it plays very similar. It feels very similar to how it felt originally playing. The one thing that I think is the big change that was a big improvement is that the iron boots were a quick switch button now instead of how it was on Ocarina, where you had to go into the menu, put them on, take them off, etc.
Yeah. The menu, I think that's a good place to start. The menu in the UI is pretty good. Like, you get information fairly quickly. They've got the different levels of like equipment, and then like your wearables versus your items. Yeah. Which is good because you don't have to flip through everything to go back and forth. There's one set of puzzles. There's one temple where you have to. I won't say there's just one temple. There's a couple temples where you have to do some shoe switches, but there's just one temple where you have to do them, like a bunch. You know, like when you have the hover boots, you don't have to do a bunch of switches. They're handy to do a few. Yeah. But I couldn't control Link with them, so I used them as little as possible.
The hover boots for sure, you don't have to use them nearly as much as the iron boots when you go to the water temple. I guess we should also warn everybody that if you haven't played the game in the last 25 years, spoilers.
Yeah, lots of spoilers. But at this point, what I'm going to say isn't going to talk you into playing it if you haven't already decided to play it.
I mean, I'll talk people into it because I feel like the controls still hold up.
Casey's
in modern times.
I'm not going to talk you out of it. I enjoyed the game, there are times I found the actual function of playing it to be a little bit of a chore, not because of any bad decision, but because of the technology of the time. Right? Like here's the thing. If I couldn't cheat the way I did, so this is the other thing you need to know about the Switch version, is that you could quick save whenever you wanted, anytime, and have multiple quick saves. Had I not been able to do that, it may not have been beaten to this day. So if you're going back to play like the Nintendo 64 version, though you can save a lot on there too, but you just have the one save.
Well, you have the one save, but you don't stop in the room that you were at. Yours were actually pausing you wherever you were.
In the moment, in the exact moment where I paused it, I could recover from.
Yeah, because if you are in the middle of the fire temple and you stop, save, and leave, when you come back, you're at the entrance of the fire temple. So that is a really annoying thing from back then.
Yeah.
But I still feel like overall the controls hold up pretty well compared to a lot of other games of that time.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a lot of things where it's hard to go back and look at because things feel clunky.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that it feels clunky compared to like Shadow of the Colossus.
Sure.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's enough uniqueness to how the controls were set up that it still holds through, because like if you go back and play GoldenEye, you're not going to get that.
No.
Because you have just the single stick to control everything, and it just doesn't play as smoothly as what it does if you're playing a modern day first person shooter.
Yes. No, that's right.
And so that's one of the things that I feel like there's so many games where it's hard to go back and replay them, but I think Ocarina is one that always holds up. Same with Majora's Mask, or most Zeldas actually.
Yeah. I should also note, it's important to note that I did not play this on a Nintendo 64 controller because my hands are just too big to hold them comfortably on the Z button and the controller, and use my right hand to push the rest of the buttons. So I got a Retro Brawlers pad style that had it like a pad with 6 buttons, but the buttons for the Z buttons were smaller. And I liked that a lot, except I don't know that its finite controls were very good, so I had a hard time whenever I had to manually aim stuff.
Yeah.
That was harder than it probably would be on a 64 controller, I think.
Yeah, the aiming was, I think, fairly smooth back in the day. I never had a tremendous amount of problem with it.
Yeah, arrow shooting when I didn't get to Z target was rough. It took like there's a point in the game where you get to do like a shooting gallery where you're riding your horse, and where you ride and you shoot off the side at targets, and it took me 3 rounds to even get to where I could competently hit targets. I would have had to play it 5 more times and have muscle memory do it because I couldn't react to the targets very quickly. And so there was times when I would like fall off a ledge because I couldn't quite aim it quite right. And there was a couple of times when I chose the iron boots so that I couldn't walk too far. Like I switched to the iron boots to keep me from going too far. But Z targeting was awesome. And with only a couple glitch, just a couple glitchy things. They weren't even glitchy, just a couple times when the distance would be weird or the enemy would go just outside of the distance. Z targeting worked great. And so Z targeting made it a lot easier. It made it mostly manageable, like 99% of the time. I don't think, and we're going to go through the bosses and kind of rate them. But yes. I don't think there was any boss that the controls made it too bad, except for Phantom Ganon.
Yeah, sure.
The controls kind of made it a little tricky, but other than that, once you figured out what the boss did, there was some precision that maybe I didn't have, because one of the reasons I didn't play these kind of games is that I just wasn't particularly good at them. So there is some precision there and some lack of muscle memory, I think, that made it so sometimes they're a little bit more difficult. But in general, I felt like I had the tools I needed to beat the boss once I figured out what I needed to do most of the time. Like, Bongo Bongo can fuck off.
I was going to mention him because he's one of the ones that Z-targeting, I still have a hard time with his stuff.
Yeah. But for the most part, so the other things I really liked about it is obviously, I think the biggest thing, and I think really the reason why people liked it so much, is that the world and the characters were as full featured and has so much personality and so much different types of characters and motivations, and there were cute ones and there were lots of boobs, and I think people really enjoyed that, as they should have. It was nothing to that point had anything like it, because Mario 64 didn't have all that. You know, it's just like, okay, we had a couple different things you interacted with, but nothing like Zelda
Yeah.
did.
Well, for boobs, though, didn't Tomb Raider come out around the same time?
Well,
PlayStation
yes.
one?
Tomb Raider... No, Tomb Raider was a little later. Wasn't it?
I don't know.
I thought Tomb Raider was PS1.
It was. But wasn't that
I thought that was like...
98, 99?
No, I guess this was. I guess...
Maybe I've got it mixed up in my
I want to
head,
look.
but...
I'm going to look. Because this is important for boob technology.
I know when I was growing up, we had the N64 and the PlayStation at the same time, and we played both of them. So it just seems like they came out close to each other. Even though PlayStation was later, I still feel like they overlapped.
PS1 came out in 94.
Ah, see?
Yeah.
Fuck off.
All right, when did Tomb Raider come out?
97.
All right, Tomb Raider PS1 came out 96.
Oh, shit. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Tomb Raider 2 was out by 97. So boobs are already in vogue at that point. But yeah, if the ladies were normal sprites, they were normal, and if they were the big sprites, they were stacked. But yeah, characters were great. Lots of secrets. So many like side missions and stuff. There's so many things I did not do that could be done in the game. Like so many things.
Yeah, there's a lot of mini games, and I don't know that. I mean, obviously there are other games that had mini games. I remember Chrono Trigger had like the beer drinking or whatever it was,
right.
but for how many there were in that game, I think that was kind of unique for Ocarina.
I agree. Having like carnival games and mini games and the mask trading and the Scalata side game and
chasing Bigoron sword stuff.
Chasing the sword and the race guy. Getting
the horse,
yeah, which you just didn't have to do. But I did it because I felt like I needed to do that in my playthrough.
Yeah. Well, you thought that it was going to be a requirement.
I thought it was going to be a requirement. I'd never seen. Well, I thought there might be a chance it wasn't going to be a requirement because I've seen a speed run, but I assumed that speed run people were cheating.
Yeah.
In a way that they made it so they didn't have to have. You know, have to have opponent when you really needed it.
Yeah, I can see that.
And you know me, I didn't miss any really good opportunity to ride the horse throughout the entire game.
I know that you're bringing that up specifically because of the jump that I wanted to see so bad, and you just did not.
I did not. Here, you know what? That's a good way to bring this up. It's not a struggle. It's not the struggle I had with the game. It's just an interesting way about the way that I see games. And maybe because I played modern ones first, going backwards. And maybe this is more of a modern game thing, I don't know. But I usually try to pay attention to when a game teaches you something, right? Mm-hmm. Like a game is like, oh, if you do this, this will happen, right? And so the game had already taught me in a few places where it was like, you can't horse up to places. Like you can horse to it. You can get the horse to a specific part, and then you gotta walk. And so I just thought, you know what? They put this narrow ass beam
Yeah.
there. Like, there's just a point where I need to walk. And also, I love the hook shot / long shot, which from now on I will always call the hook shot no matter what form it is, so just everybody be prepared for that. I love the hook shot. Any opportunity that I could use the hook shot to do anything, I would do it. And so that was a prime opportunity, but I would have missed out on the beautiful secret cutscene. There's basically a cavern jump in the
Gerudo Valley.
Yeah, Gerudo Valley, where you kind of take the horse up a little narrow, angled wood block over a hole in the ground, and then if you line up just right, there's a bridge out, and then they'll jump it, and the camera will change and everything. And it's really cool. I'm glad I got to see it, because I wouldn't have had you not mentioned it, because I'd already hook shot it and moved on with my life.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I was watching you play, and I thought, oh man, next is that scene. I want to see that. And you've been so intuitive about so many aspects of the puzzles in that game and how to do things that I just expected you would just keep riding her and jump right over. Yep. And then we'd get right there and you immediately get off of her, and I could have slammed my forehead into the desk.
You did a good job of not being obviously frustrated at that. Like, you were like, you're missing something, but you didn't give it away. I still had to think through it before we got to that point. And I really
and then you got across, and I was like, mother.
yeah. Then I was like, oh yeah, I just did this. Like, oh. So yeah, delightful. The way the world is built. I was reading an article. So I was reading one of the. I don't know if it was the developer of the game. I think it was one of the developers of the newer Zelda games. It was like that had said, we don't think Ocarina of Time has aged that well. Which, again, it's a challenge because we're bringing modernity into a game that you couldn't do that.
Yeah, I mean, they couldn't do a remake of it now without doing a severe change to it.
Yeah.
Because they would have to go open world or some other version of it that could keep up with modern times.
Yeah.
And God help us if they made a Souls-like version of Ocarina of Time remake.
Oh God. Now, that being said, if somebody wanted to take the Unreal Engine and try to make that somehow, I'd definitely watch that happen, but I wouldn't be interested in playing it. The world is, they did a good job of adding space and an epicness to the world, though sometimes after a little bit I felt like it was maybe unnecessary for it to be so damn big and empty.
Well, the field is big because that's like the only spot where you can really ride Epona.
Right.
And the rest of it are small sandboxes.
Yes. Yeah. It once you get into the chunks, and it's not like you have to do a lot of traveling, and you can teleport some. But there is a point, if you're not hunting for everything, when the spaciousness of the in-between place is just a big open space, which just happens, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing in Final Fantasy. Just, you've got big open spaces between places you're supposed to go, right? Let's see, any other things about the game that I want to mention? I would say 65 to 70% of the puzzles were very good. 30% of the puzzles were frustrating in a way they didn't have to be.
Yeah.
But that's pretty good, considering how many puzzles there are.
Yeah, and I've played too many times, so now I know too many of them to really be able to judge anything. But there's a lot of parts in that game where if I did not know what I was supposed to do, I don't know how people figure it out. Because there's so many scenes where I'm like, how is anybody supposed to know this? Or like with you, before the well, and you were trying to figure out what to do there, and I was like, I don't know how to tell you. Like, I have no idea who you should even talk to try to figure out what you're supposed to do next.
Yeah.
Even though I know what you're supposed to do, and there's nothing that I could tell you that would be a good hint without just telling you what to do.
It was. Yeah. That's a challenge. And so I was talking with my my old boss about it after I'd beaten it, And he was mentioning, he's like, well, he's like, one of the things that happened at the time is that everybody was kind of group beating it. Like, people were together with their friends, or people were, message board chatting. Like, it had a community, and that's how it all, sprouted out. And you're trying to kind of do it solo. He's like, you're lucky you had a community person because you were trying to do it without a walkthrough. And I did, like, I'm gonna say, I had to look at a walkthrough to figure out how to get the damn horse. Mm-hmm. Like, I was like, I want to do this without bothering you. I wanted to surprise you that I did it. I want to do it, but I'm like, okay, now what? Like, I get to the point where I'm like, okay, because I was like, oh, okay, he tells me I can pick out a horse. I guess I just have to beat him on a horse. So I did that for a while, and I'm like, well, I can't even do that. He's just like, you ride around on a horse. So I rode around on a horse, and then it ended. He's like, you want to ride on a horse? Pay me some more. And I'm like, I'm missing something. I want to figure out what the hell it is. So it's just like, oh, play her song so you can get the horse, and then you get to do all the stuff. I'm like, okay. I don't feel too terrible about that.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was just straight up like, remember where you were. Because the other thing is that my spatial recognition of some of the dungeons and stuff, like, if I didn't have the compass and the map to tell me what room I came out of, I could go in the same room 7 times sometimes.
Yeah.
I come out, get in a little dizzy circle, go back in, go, oh crap, where was I? Where am I going? Come out.
Yeah. And that's one of the more complicated, or I say complicated, that's one of the more frustrating parts about the game, because you can talk to somebody, get the information you need, but you don't need it right then.
Right.
And then later when you do need it, they don't repeat the same thing that they said originally.
Yep.
And so that's before the well, that was one of the things that you couldn't figure out, because you had already talked to the person, already gotten the thing that you needed from them, and so they're not going to repeat it again. And so you were just like running in circles, not remembering who you talked to and what they said.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that's another thing about the game is that you go through a pretty decent space where you don't have to be young Link anymore. And so I stopped thinking about young Link.
Yeah.
Like, I just was like, okay, we must be done with that.
Yeah, because you go through several temples where you don't have to do anything with him again as young Link, and then you have 2 in a row where you're like, oh.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I guess I need young Link time, right? And then in Ganon's castle, in the fire spirit portion, there's a puzzle that you can't beat without getting an item from a different room.
Yeah.
And it's obvious that the pillars that are there mean something. Like, it gives you the grab prompt and everything.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, I must need to be able to do something with this. And I would have tilled at that windmill for a while, but I just thought, you know what? I'd like to feel successful at this game again. I'm just going to go back and do other rooms and come back to it. Because I'm like, worst case scenario, if I beat all the rest of the rooms and come back to this one, something will have happened to where I can get this.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. But things like that are why I have a hard time not using walkthroughs on Metroidvania games, because there's so many times where I get to something and I'm like, oh, I just don't have the tool I need for this room yet, because there's so many, like, you're about to play Metroid Prime, so I'll tell you, there's so many places where you get to a spot and you're like, you cannot progress. You have to go back to where you were before and find another route and then come back here. And so I hit places like that and I'm like, oh, I just don't have a thing yet, and I leave. But then it was actually a puzzle.
Yes.
And I could have done the thing.
You could have, And that's where it gets tricky. But, again, all in all, the thing that makes that game special is the characters and the level of technology.
Yeah.
Like, it was just so far advanced from anything anyone was doing, period. Especially on the technology of the Nintendo 64. Like, amazing. It was an amazing experience. I will be honest with you, I will never play it again.
That's okay, I will. I've played enough for
You've played enough for both of us. Well, that's not true. I am going to sit down. I kept that save for the
Gorons, the Fire Temple,
the Gerudo challenge area.
Oh, the archery.
Yeah, and then the archery. I kept those. I'm like, I might do those at some point. I might go
Oh,
back
the
and
training
do those.
grounds.
Yeah, the training grounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I might do those at some point. I might go back and do those at some point.
Yeah, fuck those. I don't do those. They annoy the shit out of me every time. I get pissed off and I quit.
They will probably do the same thing to me, but I gave myself an opportunity to try them if I want. So that save will exist forever. I'm so excited. I'm so glad I got to see the characters. I got to see some of the stuff.
Yeah, the Gorons especially.
Especially the Gorons.
So cute.
The Gorons were cute.
Why are we 10 miles under?
Just doing random speeds. Because it's dangerous to go alone.
Here, take this.
Okay.
Bosses.
So, I have a list of all the sub-bosses. Well, I don't know if they're all the sub-bosses, but it was a list of sub-bosses that was complete enough that I thought that would be good for us to rank.
Okay.
It's okay to not have an opinion about any of these, but I'm going to go through them. So first off, and I don't know what order these are in. These look like they're in pretty good order.
Yeah, sub-bosses, I'm not going to know their names as well as the actual bosses. So.
Yes, and if we got it, I think I looked at the pictures of each of these, so I think I remember, and I think you'll know most of these once I talk about it. But the first one on Dodongo's Cavern is the Lizalfos.
Oh, yeah.
They're fine. They're a decent combat challenge. They're not too bad. They mostly fight you one-on-one, even though there's two of them.
Yeah, I do like that part of them because they're still pretty early in the game where you're learning the mechanics still.
Yeah.
That they dance around and wait for you.
Yeah, I didn't hate any time they came up. They didn't bother me that bad. They don't do as much damage as one of the ones we're going to come up to later.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you're talking about Skeleton Men.
Yeah. Yep. They're
Stalfos?
Stalfos, yes. Which is the one after the big Octo in Jabu Jabus.
Oh, yeah.
Which I liked. I liked the big Octo battle.
Yeah, I always enjoy that battle.
Yeah, it was a fun battle.
But, I mean, I like King Dodongo and Dodongo's Cavern,
Sure.
too. So, obviously, any of those where you're going around on a little racetrack, I'm big fan of.
Yeah, no, that was great. Stalfos can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, don't like them. I don't like that they come back.
Yes.
If you don't kill the second one quickly enough.
Yes. Their challenge level is way too much for the whole thing. Like, they're too competent at guarding. They come back. They can double team you. They don't do it very often, but they can.
Yeah.
But this was specifically the Forest Temple versions of them. Then we've got the Megs in the Forest Temple, which are the
pose?
The pose, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the pose. The pose are great. Like, even though figuring out the pose on the pictures.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
Was tough. They're great. The design of them, what they did, how they're introduced, great.
Yeah, I love them. I love the Forest Temple in general, though.
Yeah.
But them specifically, like the color coding and that they change.
Yeah.
But the ones in the pictures are difficult because if you're not paying attention and realizing that they're there and that you're supposed to, that they're moving through the pictures, it's really hard to figure that out. Because again, the game doesn't tell you.
Yeah,
and Navi is useless.
Yeah, Navi is useless.
Which is, I'm amazed that we've gotten this far into this episode without either of us mentioning her and how awful she is.
I did it on purpose because it was going to make me angry.
Okay. Well,
so it's time. No, it's time to do it. It's time to talk about how useless she is. She's useless, and somehow she finds a way to be more useless when you kind of need her to not be.
Yeah, so the Forest Temple, the pose, she does not tell you about the pictures. She doesn't make any reference to them at all.
Nope.
But then you're just walking and she points out, well, this hallway is twisted.
Yeah, the hallway that's obviously is twisted. Did
you notice that there's yellow arrows on the floor?
The yellow arrows is the most bullshit thing there could be. Pointing out that there's things that are pointing is the worst. It's the worst. It's the worst.
I mean, I'm sure that there's somebody who's like looking up, looking around, and they're not looking at the floor. So I think that was a useful enough tip, as useless as it seems for anybody who's paid attention.
If she was giving tips all the time, that would be great. Right? If she was giving those type of tips constantly, that would be a normal level of tip that would go, oh yeah, great.
That would
she just
infuriate
points out
me more.
stuff.
If she stopped to tell me about every little thing,
Well,
I would lose my mind and I would never replay that game.
No, I don't disagree with you, but I'm just saying she fails you so often that for her to show up and tell you about some arrows on the ground makes it just extra useless.
Yeah.
But yeah, she doesn't tell you about the pose, and again, because of the way that I play games, I'm just like, games don't need to do this. It's okay that games make you think, but normally a game would do something that would at least train you to look at the wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Something that would just be like, here's a little mini puzzle at the beginning that tells you that this is a thing you're gonna have to look for. Instead of just being like, hey, here's this kind of mechanic, you better figure it out, because if you don't, you're just gonna be stuck.
Yeah. Okay, who's the next sub-boss?
Next one is the flare dancers in the fire temple.
Oh, I love them.
I also love the flare dancers. They take too much damage and they're alive too long, but I think they're fantastic.
It is a lot of hits for them.
It's way too much hits, because once you figure it out, it's just a situation where you just kind of do it.
Yeah.
You know? But I love the design. I love the thought process, especially the first ones.
I love the little noise he makes. Yeah.
Especially the first ones that has the fire in the middle, so you can't like stand in the middle. You kind of have to work your way around and find yourself a nice angle. It feels like we've got passed by that truck. I know it's been different versions of that truck. Like a big silver truck is like every few minutes a big silver truck passes us. We're in big silver truck country, apparently.
That is the state we're in.
Yeah, we are. But yes, flare dancers are great. I love them.
Yeah, love them.
Ice Cavern White Wolfoses.
They're fine.
They're fine. Yeah.
I think out of the Lizalfos and Stalfos and all of those, I think that the Wolfos, especially the white ones, the snow ones, probably my favorite out of all of that.
That type. Kind of, yes.
But in general, I don't love them.
Yeah, they're fine. They're fightable. They'll do some damage to you, but they block but they're not unbearable. Yeah, fine. Yes, Dark Link in the Water Temple.
He's a huge pain.
Here's the thing. I'm a pretty big sucker for dark versions, and they do them a lot.
Yeah. I do love the room that he's
The
in.
room is awesome, but the room threw me so off.
Yeah.
I was like, what is about to happen here?
It's spooky stuff, especially because you're just in the water temple, which doesn't have like the creepy vibe to it that you get in like the Shadow Temple or the Forest Temple or something. And then you walk into this room that's all mirrored and reflective.
Yeah, but I like the reflection angle. Like, that's really cool. I like Dark Link in general, even though fighting him was kind of a pain in the ass.
Yeah. I agree with that.
I used so much magic when I fought him.
Yeah, Dense Fire is a good way to kind of...
weakened him down a bit.
Yeah.
All right.
Cheese that a little bit.
We got Dead Hands, which I didn't hate the Dead Hands. I kind of like the Dead Hands.
Yeah, I enjoy Dead Hands.
Yeah, I kind of like the Dead Hands.
That thing, though, terrified me when I was a kid.
Of course it did. Like most of everything, even around the levels, the Dead Hands. But the Dead Hands, those are the screaming, suck your brain out guys that freeze you. The ones that stand still, like in the marketplace when you're
Redeads.
Yes, those guys I do not care for.
Yeah,
they
terrified me too.
Yeah.
Scary stuff.
Yep, don't care for them. But yeah, I like Dead Hand. Dead Hand was fun.
Yeah.
The Gerudo Thieves in the Gerudo Fortress that you have to kind of fight. There.
Yeah, they can be some of the worst fights.
Yes.
Because that one hit sends you back to the beginning, and so then you have to do it again. So it can be very annoying, but once you get a routine and a rhythm going with them, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
And they're a cool design.
Yes, the design is cool. And if it wasn't for the send you back part, that fight would be kind of great. Like, like any fight that you get, because the next one I'm going to say you kind of have that too. Any fight where you get to use some of the sidestepping or like I never used it enough, but in those battles I felt comfortable with it. Mm-hmm. Where it was like, okay, we're doing a little athletic dance a bit. I always enjoyed those.
Yeah.
And then the next one, and the last one on this list, is the Iron Knuckles, which are the big iron axe guys. I like the big iron axe
in the
guys.
Spirit Temple?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed the big axe guys. They were fun. I liked that they had, except for the last one you fight, the last two that you fight, they're in a level where you can get them to knock down the pillars and you can get some hearts.
Yeah.
And knock down the thrones and you can get some hearts. I was fighting them in a way I knew made it harder for myself because I wanted to do it. But once you just only attack them when they did the axe straight into the ground and you didn't worry about the two side swipes, they were pretty easy.
Yeah.
But I liked them. I liked their design. I like how when they broke some, they went faster at you.
Yeah. I enjoy them.
As a matter of fact, outside of the Flare Dancers, they might be my second favorite. I liked them.
Okay. Yeah, I think the Pose are my second favorite.
The Pose, I like the Pose too. But I didn't care. I liked the design of the Pose. I liked fighting the Iron. I think the trick is I liked fighting the Iron Knuckles maybe the most of all of these.
Okay, yeah.
All right, so that's our sub-bosses. Now let's talk about our bosses.
Yeah.
First off, we start at Goma in the Deku Tree.
I like Goma. I think that Goma is a good boss. It's a good intro boss.
It's
not
boss.
Super complicated of a fight, but it's good. So I like Goma,
The
but I would not put it as
Goma,
like the top.
No, the introduction of Goma is great.
Mm-hmm.
The big eye design of all the kind of the bad guys in their eye situation. Great, but Goma, great. I like Goma as a first boss. Probably will end up in the middle of this list of bosses, maybe lower middle.
Yeah, I would put that in the middle. I think it's a good intro, but
and a fine boss for the first boss to be.
Yeah.
King Dodongo.
I love King Dodongo.
King Dodongo battle was good. It was not fine. It was good. It was a good battle. It was one of those kind of game mechanics bomb battles that you have in games with bombs. Mm-hmm. Great battle. Cute.
Yeah.
Cute boss. Fun time. I was very pleased.
Yeah, he's probably my number 2 or number 3 out of all the bosses.
Baronade from Jabu Jabu.
Hate him. End of the list. I'm going to go ahead and say spoilers and say that the same's true for the Water Temple when we get to the next water one.
I like Baronade more than I like Morpha from the Water Temple. I think the thing that knocks the Water Temple boss Morpha down for me is I figured out how to beat it without too much trouble.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, I just stand over here and wait for this to do this and this to do this and then hit this and then we're done.
But if you get caught by Morpha, it does so much damage.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it'll take 5 or 6 hearts with one hit.
Yeah. But once you don't get hit by Morpha, like, once I was like, I can just stand on the outside and just dodge the one, okay, fine. So, so we didn't, I'll come back to Morpha, only to come back to Morpha, but, all right, so now we got Phantom Ganon in the Forest Temple.
Yeah, so, we probably need to talk about the temples that they're in, too, because I love the Forest Temple. I love where Forest Ganon's at, or Phantom Ganon, where he's at. I think that he fits the theme for the Forest Temple very well. The fight itself, I think the start of it is very cool, where you've got the paintings, and you have to pick which one is the real versus the the fake Phantom, and
that's great.
Shoot him and stuff and hit him. But then you have that little volleyball-y,
reflection bullshit,
volleyball back and forth that it gets so old so quickly, and he gets so fast where he volleys so quickly back at you. I put it. He is middle of the road for me.
He is probably strong middle for me. But I like the picture one so much, that might bump him up.
Yeah.
But I dislike the volleyballing part so much that might take him down. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I like it in general. But for what you said, the room is cool. The theme of it is cool. But yeah, the volleyball. And the other weird thing is that, which I'm really okay with, but it's the only time they really kind of use the volleyballing mechanic. which is just kind of sad. Not the only time, but
they use it at the very end.
Yeah, Ganon is the one person that they use the volleyball mechanic for.
Yeah. But I do like, so jumping ahead to the Ganon fight,
yes.
I like that it's reflective of the Phantom Ganon fight.
Yes, yeah, yes.
I thought that was a cool, like, connection between the two of them, because it is Phantom Ganon.
Yeah, it is still Ganon doing Ganon things, right? Here's my problem with Ganon. Actually, I'm gonna come back to Ganon.
Yeah, because we're about to get to my favorite. So.
Yes. So let's go to your favorite, Volvagia.
For those who know how to properly pronounce it, just ignore that you know that.
Listen, no one knows how to properly pronounce it. Volvagia is correct. The level is cool. The boss has a good mix of attacks.
It's whack-a-mole.
Got a whack-a-mole situation.
Coolest design out of any dragon.
Great design. It's a strong...
Maybe not out of every dragon. I take back what I just said, but it's a really good dragon design.
Well, you know what? We will come back in a future episode and just have a talk about dragons.
Okay.
So let's just remember that. That is a great boss battle. I think it's probably the best one.
Yeah. I love that fight.
Yeah, I think it's probably the best one as well. Morpha, we talked about. Morpha's...
I don't think there's more to say about her. I hate her. Or it. Whatever.
I think I like Morpha more than I like this next one, which is Bongo Bongo.
I can't stand Bongo Bongo either. In the levels, for me, it's both of the water ones are at the very bottom, and then it's Bongo Bongo. Because I still think his drumming and design is... Well, I don't like his design, but... It
suits, like, especially thinking about it's Japanese, the Japanese developer, and how they like their occult stuff. Mm-hmm. I think it probably fits even better than I think it fits. But it just isn't that fun. Like, here's the thing. I like the hands. Like, I like battles against big hands. Like, the big hands in Smash Brothers and stuff. Like, it did some cool animations. It did some kind of fun things. But here's what I don't like. I do not like in games where you have a secondary item that you have to manage a quantity of, that you have to turn on and turn off to do stuff. And the Lens of Truth, I cannot stand that shit. Can't stand it. Yeah. And it's not even that bad, really, but it just turns me off of the whole situation. But if it wasn't on a big drum and it was hands and something else funner, I would like it a lot more.
Yeah, the drumming for me is what gets me, because I'm trying to shoot the stupid hands and then you get all knocked about, and so you can't aim.
Yep.
So I've never enjoyed that fight.
Yeah. Nope.
Probably out of battles, it's my least favorite, but I'm still putting the two water bosses below it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Now, a battle that I did like quite a bit is the Twin Rova battle.
Yes, that is my number 2 or number 3. It competes with King Dodongo, which one I like more, because I love this one more.
Twin Rova is probably my second one, and Dodongo is probably my third. Twin Rova was fun. I liked what they did. I liked that they had the two and then you merged them into one. I liked the way the whole shield worked, and it didn't take that long to figure out.
Yeah.
Like, it took me a minute to figure it out, but it didn't take me that long to figure it out. Yeah, I like that. I really enjoyed that fight. Also boobs. All right, finally, we go to Ganon 1.
Ganondorf.
That's right, Ganondorf.
Oh, and we have been saying Ganon, and we meant Ganondorf.
Yeah, we meant Ganondorf. It's fine. It's fine. I hated the fall all the way to the ground and have to climb back up. I hated that so much. And again, one of the things that is weighted by me is that I did use so many saves to, like, come back up and be on the pillar. And, like, I did so many saves to have to avoid having to do the climb up because I hated that so much. Mm-hmm. But I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it.
Yeah, and I thought his intro is a good intro.
His intro is awesome.
I don't love the fight either. It's fine. I hate that Navi can't help you.
Yeah.
Which now This is what happens every time I play this game, is I think of how much I hate her and how useless she is.
Yeah.
And then I remember at the end the fight with Ganondorf, and I'm like, oh, that's right. She is completely useful, and I want her all the time, because when you don't have her, it's so annoying because you can't Z-target.
Yeah. But the problem is, even though she's useful in the aspect of the game, she's not actually useful. Like, she's what's enabling Z-targeting, but all she's doing is enabling Z-targeting.
Yeah.
It's not like some function that you unlocked of her or anything.
Yeah.
It's just a game mechanic that useless ass lady turns off after being useless.
Well, she can't help you. That's the whole point of it, is she says, I can't help you with this.
Yeah. It just adds extra uselessness to her useless. Now, the Ganon battle is fine. I did it using almost all of my magic.
Yeah, I remember you saying that, and I was like, what are you talking about? Because I forgot that you can use the light arrows to freeze them up.
And more importantly, the reason I used the light arrows to freeze them up is that I think Navi says something about it.
She might.
I think she says something about it, and so I used it, and I knew I didn't probably have to use them on his tail, but I thought, well, why the hell not? Right? Like, why not? But then, when I was out of magic at the end, I just had to use the roll through his legs stratagem.
Yeah.
And then just chop him in the butt, which worked fine.
Yeah. See, I use Deku Nuts, because those will actually do damage to him. Yeah. And then when I get the sword back, I usually just roll through or hop around or something. Like, I will use the light arrows, but I usually don't use that many of them.
Yep. Well, I used Deku Nuts maybe 5 times the whole time.
So for the most part, I forget about them until I get to that fight. Yeah. And then I don't have anything, and I'm like, oh shit, yeah, I'll just use the nuts, because I remember that they do damage.
And you've reminded me a few times, oh hey, Deku Nuts. And then I still don't continue to remember.
Yeah, because they do help with the sub-bosses too, because they'll pause like the Lizalfos and all of them. And
once I could freeze things with the hook shot, it was go time, baby. Hook shot city.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that thing. My grappling hook / hook shot is some of my favorite items in any game that has them, and this game was no exception. All right, you have a final thing you want to say to the people about Ocarina of Time before we wrap this up?
I mean, we've already covered that it's my favorite game, and I think that it holds up very well in modern times. I don't necessarily want to see a remake or anything like that of it, but I think it's a great game, and I'm glad that you played it. And I appreciate that you played it.
I am glad I played it too. I'm glad that you introduced it to me and had me sit down, because I would have probably never gone back and played it had we not had. And there's so many things that I didn't know about it, which was cool. Like, there's so many, like, here, these are bosses I haven't seen and levels that I haven't seen and whatever, which is great. Now there's more memes that I understand, which is great. I think it was really a quality, like, I can't stop speaking about how ahead of its time and advanced and well forward thought it was. Far better than it had any business being. A true pioneer, a true trailblazing game. It'll be interesting to see when eventually I start to tackle Majora's Mask, how I feel about that.
Different vibes.
Yeah.
Very similar playstyle and very similar controls, but different vibes.
Yeah. I'm really interested now that I've played through it. Like, again, because I hadn't played this, I don't know that I was ever interested in playing Majora's Mask. But now that I've played this, it'll be interesting just to see what they figured out. You know what I mean? Like, what they decided to change. And obviously still time is just a thing, because that's always a thing with Link is time. So yeah, cool. All right. Well, that was the Ocarina of Time retrospective.
Much anticipated.
Much anticipated. I'm excited to say I beat it. The final scene of the game was worth the playthrough, I think, by itself.
And we've officially made it to the second state. So
we did it.
We did a two-state episode, 2 episodes in a row.
Two-state episodes on completely different days, mind you.
Yep.
Which is might be a world record. Might be a podcasting world record. Also, go Preds, even though they lost.
Yep.
Alas. All right. Thanks, everybody.